Good evening, everyone. Welcome to The Line. I am your host, Aaron, and with me is me and myself. All three of us are here. We do have our other co-host coming in soon. If you are hoping for the Forrest, for now, please take the substitute of just the tree. And yes, the puns are only going to get worse tonight as we listen to me. If this is your first time here, well, welcome to the show where we talk and talk and talk to our guests. You want to come in, tell us about how you know there's the Almighty and he wants you to vote Republican. Okay, we need to chat. If you got some science questions, we could probably talk about those too. You want to come in, tell us how Bigfoot came in last night and told you a bedtime story. Details, I want them. We might be a bit skeptical, but I am at least curious. So, according to the Chiron down here, I am a bit of a split personality at the moment, just going to center myself. I am me, and we're all together. Okay. Now, we have a few people either in the queue right now or coming up soon. If, again, you are new here, we try to prioritize theists. We try to put those at the top. Right now, I am looking at the queue, and who we got lined up is an atheist from Ohio. So let us bring in Nathan, pronouns he, him. Apparently, he wants to talk about the universe expanding and not my waistline expanding. Nathan, how are you doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
Not bad. I hope you're doing well.
Yep.
All right. So according to the message in here, you want to talk about the expansion of the universe. So tell me where you're at and what you want to talk about.
So my sorry. Like I'm familiar with the raisin bread analogy. With that being said, is there a pan, so to speak? Like, is the universe expanding into anything? Like, is there a nothingness outside of it? Or is that one of the great unknowns?
So it doesn't necessarily make sense to talk about space outside of space. And we can talk about expansion even without something to expand into. Now, you were mentioning the analogy of raisins in bread. So just for the sake of the audience, the idea is you could imagine the expansion of the universe as when you put bread in an oven, and if every raisin in that loaf of bread is a galaxy. So as the bread rises and expands, the spaces between those raisins expand. And so that is the apparent increase in distance between the galaxies. The galaxies aren't like trying to run away from each other. It's the space between them is expanding. Now, I can see why that analogy fails, because no matter what you do, if you have a loaf of bread, it's still finite and it's still expanding into space. This is a spatial object in space, so the analogy still leaves that kind of confusion. So let me try another version of the analogy, but I don't know if it'll help because all right, let's try it with a rubber band, just so that way it's nice and one-dimensional. If I take a rubber band, I put 2 points on the rubber band, I pull it apart, the space in between those dots is increasing because the rubber band itself is stretching. But again, you can imagine there's always a finite rubber band. So I'm going to see if this helps. What if the rubber band were infinitely long? So no matter where you are on the rubber band, there's an infinite more distance you could travel. You could still, though, imagine the rubber band stretching, and every single point on that rubber band still then expanding out, but every single point is also getting further away from all the other points, and they're not expanding into anything because it's infinitely long, it's already in all points, but now they're spreading out. I don't know if that helps because now we're bringing in infinity, but that's a way that you can have expansion without needing to take up new space. So does that provide any help, Nathan? Because I'm honestly spitballing if this is helpful.
Yeah, a little bit. Like it's one of those things. Like, you know, I grew up in the church and stuff, and just my surface level understanding of it. You know, I just kind of always assumed that, you know, we have the universe, and then like outside of the universe, there's nothingness, and that is, you know, kind of the space that the universe itself was filling. So it's just hard to realize that that's wrong and not think of it that way.
Yeah, because yeah, that idea you would have to have space within some sort of other space, in which case there's some like boundary to the universe, it seems, that you just can't get past. And well, that might make sense with like say the old snow globe version of what the universe was, where the Earth is flat, you got your sky dome, and outside there is the heavens. With the physical universe, that kind of barrier thing doesn't work so well. And honestly, we've also realized that doesn't work since at least the first century BC. There is this poem by Lucretius called On the Nature of Things. It's in Latin, so if you like Latin poetry, you can check that out. But it is a poem that teaches you physics as understood by this school of philosophers in olden days. And it has this argument about why there can't be an edge to the universe. If you imagined that you actually ran out and traveled to that edge of the universe and then tried to extend your hand out beyond the edge, what would happen? If your hand can go beyond the edge, well, then clearly there's space beyond that, and so there wasn't an actual edge. If you put your hand out and you hit something, there's some wall there, but that wall there then has to be outside of the universe. So again, there has to be space beyond that. Therefore, there makes no sense that there is some furthest distance, some barrier point of how far you could go. That was Lucretius's argumentation for why there can't be an edge to the universe, and so the universe is infinite in size. And with an infinite universe, also you have the possibility of infinite stars, infinite planets, infinite opportunities for life. Yeah, the ancient people, at least some ancient people, think there was the possibility of other life-bearing planet-like things out there elsewhere. So a little bit ahead of their time, even though their physics was far away from what we have. So now I feel like I'm rambling a bit, but I hope it's fun rambling.
No, yeah, I mean that's kind of crazy that they were that on point that long ago.
Oh yeah. I mean, heck, they also had ideas like the existence of atoms. The arguments that they have isn't obviously the same as our scientific ones, but you had people like Democritus in like the 5th century BC, something like that, coming up with his philosophical arguments for why atoms must exist. Not everyone believed that, but now we of course say how smart he was because we're now modern day atomists. Uh, Lots of different ideas were there back then. They didn't yet have a good way to figure out who was right, and everyone of course was arguing that they were right and everyone else was wrong. And well, we that's why we had to build science, so that way we could actually do a better job of figuring this out and asking new questions like the ones you're asking, Nathan, because yeah, they are hard. They require us to realize just how much more strange our science has led us to believe everything is. And the strangeness isn't going to stop, so I hope you want to keep learning.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
All right, anything else you want to chat about before we let you go?
No, that was it. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for coming in, and have a great night, Nathan.
You too. Thanks.
All right, starting off strong with the science. And
what's up?
I was told that my host was going to be Forrest, but instead I got one of those wacky arm-waving inflatable tube men.
Named Aaron Adair, apparently. I am also Aaron Adair. Greetings, everybody.
Yes.
Hi. I'm here now from the other show. How was
Forrest,
everyone?
can you scratch your mic?
too.
I'm not sure you have the right one selected. Okay, no, I hear that. It's just a little
That's the
quiet.
only one. I can turn this up. Up.
There you go. That's a little better.
He's better. Okay, let me double check my settings in here too. I think Bow, 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 bow. Yep, everything looks good on my side. Can you hear this?
That was a guest.
Wonderful. Wonderful. How spelled inflatable? You did
We
a great job.
we are coming up with your exact
Gay?
name, and
No, leave it as gay. There we go. That's better.
all right.
I like how
This will
that's on
not
a
cause
separate
any
line,
confusion
like
in the
it's
audience.
further description. This is wacky waving tube man. Gay. Just perfect.
We still have the
I'm
confusion. Are you gay because you're having a good time tonight, or gay because of who you like to hang out with? It's a little.
Right. Exactly.
It could be both, obviously.
Flipping show. The show has begun. You already did the intro and everything. Everybody knows why we're
I've
here.
introed. I've already taken a caller. In theory, I'm doing things right.
In theory. Hell yeah. Cool. So yeah, if anybody out there, if you're a science denier of any kind, if you believe in Jesus and that we need to as well, or if you're a science denier of some kind, if you're a creationist or you don't like the Big Bang, or you don't believe in trans people, or you don't believe in the age of the Earth being 4.6 billion years, or if you want to grump about vaccines or the shape of the Earth or something like that, this is the call for you. And tune in and watch the show and maybe pick up the phone too. That'd be a lot of fun. The Bible is the bad book, and we're here to talk about it. Man, it's weird coming in the middle of the show. You know, it's fine. It's fine.
Don't worry, it's the early middle. I was also noticing as they were changing your name for a moment, it said Tommy Boy, and I was kind of hoping we would have kept that.
I am both of those things, both Tommy and Boy. Yeah, I'm leaving you. You started the thing. Do you want to take? I was looking at line number 4, maybe next.
Oh, definitely. We got to prioritize our theist callers, so let us do it.
Sweet chicken. Let's talk to Vlad. Pronouns he, him, who wants to talk about Christianity. Vlad, you are on the line with Forrest and Aaron. How you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing great. Before we get things started, I just want to say my name is Vlad and pronouns he, him, so we can just get that out of the way.
That's what I've got on the screen.
Awesome, sweet. So you guys claim that the Bible is the bad book. I claim that the Bible is to be used for people, and it is subjective to say that it is bad, but that doesn't mean that everyone should suffer from it. The Bible does have some great things that it talks about.
So does Lord of the Rings.
So absolutely, I agree with that. My concern is, though, when you say the Bible is bad, can you specifically say what is so terrible about it?
It endorses slavery, it endorses genocide, it endorses rape, it endorses pedophilia, and it teaches a type of morality that is based on conditional love and scapegoating and doesn't actually lead people to be responsible for the wrongdoings. So it's just all around front to back, not a great book. It has some good messages in there. I really like that part where it talks about how farmers shouldn't harvest a part of their fields in case any passersby are hungry and need some food. I think that's kind of a cool idea. Definitely needs to be modernized for the modern day, but I like that idea, that kind of concept. And I like the idea of restorative justice over punitive justice, which is sometimes part of the Bible, but not always. And I like the idea of love being the central law of humanity, but just not the sick mockery of love that the God of the Bible promotes or any of the other bullshit laws that he enforces. Aaron, do you have anything extra you want to add to that?
Just to add to a point that Vlad was saying, that you saying the book is bad is subjective. Conversely, that would also go for anyone saying that it is good, let alone holy. If it's whatever we make of it, well, I agree with that we will interpret the book in the ways that we see fit, which all the more shows it should not really be receiving any sort of special authority if it just becomes the tool for it to say what we want, and those who will then wield it as a cudgel for their own demands in politics and elsewhere, and make you cower in fear based on its most terrible messages. We have seen historically this sort of thing happen, and the best way to push back against it is say, it's just one more book. Let's do better.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I actually really like that that acknowledgement of the subjectivity I would also like to make an analogy that, the same way there are good scientists and bad scientists who, vouched for asbestos and those who vouched against it, creating and procuring documents that did proclaim that, yes, asbestos is good and it causes no harm. I like the fact of subjectivity, but I would like to say that the majority of people who use the Bible do not use it in the means of saying it's bad. And going by this subjectiveness, I would say that if a majority of people says something is bad, it is probably bad. But if a majority of people say that something is good, it's probably good. So how can you say that the Bible is bad when almost a third of the world uses it as something that they follow and do not commit heinous crimes?
Well, first
They don't
off,
follow
obviously,
it.
majority vote does not make something good or bad. We just have to go back a couple centuries where the vast majority of people thought that slavery was good, natural, appropriate, politically savvy, and we
And
only,
ordained by
in
God.
relatively recent times, decided, you know what? Actually, we were all wrong about that. And while there are some curmudgeons that still want to hold on to that, in part because of what holy books say, we have realized by the reality of what slavery does to people, both master and slave, no, this is not good. No, this is terrible. We ought not
Totally
to do
understand.
this.
Totally understand.
And of
But
course,
the
in
issue
which
here
case
is,
then, if
I
we
would
are saying
say, is
objectively,
the
if
same
we're now
thing,
saying
the
that
way I
actually we
said
know
bad
better
scientists and
about
good
slavery,
scientists, we can have
Vlad,
a majority say something is good,
Still,
and the only way
he was
it
in
is
the middle of
factualized,
talking.
if it
He
is
was in the middle of explaining
peer-reviewed,
it.
it is documented,
Just
and
gonna
it is
remind you, Vlad, he was
reputable.
in the middle of a sentence when you jumped in there.
Okay, I apologize about that.
I was going
I
to say
apologize.
that we have now come to realize that indeed it is wrong to have slaves. It is actually harmful. There is no good justification for it. And yet we still have the book that says slaves obey your masters. It has no statements that actually undermine slavery and was used as the main tool by many people to continue the practice. And even today, you will go on YouTube, and when you point out, here's what the book says, then they start saying, oh, maybe slavery is okay. This is a problem, and the problem doesn't go away by saying some people misuse the Bible. We say, hey, it's got crap in it that we can now say this was bad, this was wrong. It might have been what people believed in the past, but we ought not to believe what this book purports.
Before I say anything, I want to just make a few statements to that contradict what you say. If a majority of people agree that 1 plus 1 is 2, it is factually 2. If a majority of people say 1 plus 1 is 3, it is 3. There's no way you can argue against that. But the problem is,
Yes, you can.
a leaf to me looks brown, but a leaf to you looks green. That is subjective. The same way subjectivism exists everywhere. The problem here is,
Nope.
the problem
I don't
is
think you
not
know what
the
objective
Bible,
means.
but rather the
that's not how that
education
works, dude.
of the people who
Vlad,
read. Can you explain it to me?
you don't
then?
know what objective
Explain
means,
it
so
to
we
me.
need to step back and talk about definitions.
Yeah, that's not true at
Subjectiveness.
all. What you just said about
what
1
you
and 1 and all
interpret.
that stuff, none of that is true.
Objective is literally the opposite of
Subjectivism
what
is
you
what you
interpret. That
interpret
is
things as.
subjective.
Your interpretation of it.
Your interpretation is literally subjective. It is subject dependent.
Correct.
Objective is not subject dependent.
Correct.
So when you say a majority of people believing things makes it objectively that thing, that is objectively wrong.
Do a majority of people believe that 1 plus 1 is 2?
Objectively, a majority of people believing 1 plus 1 is 3 makes it true is objectively wrong.
How so?
Well, can 1 equal 2?
Can 1 equal 2? I mean, if 2 is also equal to 1, then yes.
So
Oh my
if you
fucking
assume the
God.
thing that you know is wrong is true, then it's true. I think we need to stop before I feel like we're getting trolled.
Right. Yeah, just really quick, Vlad. I'm just going to ask one more question to
sincerely
be
not
sure.
trolling you guys.
Vlad, do you believe that reality exists independent of our opinions?
Absolutely.
If all human beings were to die right now and there was nobody observing the world, the universe around us, does the universe continue to exist?
Absolutely.
And if there is in this universe one thing and one other thing, then objectively, independent of our opinions, because there are no humans there to make opinions, there would be two things, right?
Absolutely.
And if now magically some humans came into existence and they said, I think that might be three things, they're just wrong, right? That doesn't mean that they're accurate. That doesn't mean they're telling the truth. That doesn't mean that two things have now become three things. They are just all mistaken, right?
Absolutely.
So what you said a minute ago about how if we all agree 1 + 1 is 3, that's just wrong. That's not how that actually works, right?
The issue here is the fact that when I say all, I mean all. If all people agree that the sky is red, then how can you say the sky is a different color?
Because the sky, the color of the sky, as with the color of all things, is not just a matter of opinion. It is a particular wavelength of light that we can measure. So when I say something
Absolutely,
is red,
I agree.
it meets that criteria. If you perceive red differently, then you are perceiving that particular wavelength of light differently. But the particular wavelength of light remains the same, just as 2 remains the same.
Exactly. And
so
that's exactly what I'm
everything
getting
we're talking
at.
about here, when we talk about the Bible objectively condones slavery and pedophilia and rape and genocide. If you want to say those things might be good if we all agree on it, sure, that's cultural evolution, that's society, that's a great thing. But what I'm telling you is, from our side of the table over here, those things are always bad, and it doesn't matter how many people agree on them. There was once a time when slavery was much more normalized. That didn't mean it was a good thing, and it doesn't mean that people who owned slaves were good people just because they were doing what was normal.
I like that. That wording is a lot better that I can stick with. Okay, I can stick with that. Because I do agree that objectively it is bad to hold another human captive and use them as a resource for your own gain, and it is objectively bad to harm people for your own gain. But that's the way we interpret it back then. Things have changed now. Of course, people have still remained traditional. People have still remained those beliefs, but that doesn't mean objectively the Bible is bad. What you interpret it as is what you interpret it as. The problem is not the Bible,
what it
but the
means
education of the people who read it.
The most progressive, loving, caring Christian in the world and the Grand Wizard of the KKK are reading the same Bible, and they're getting different meanings out of it and different lifestyles out of it. That's a problem.
Absolutely.
That means that the Bible isn't a reliable book, and it isn't worth reading and basing your life around. Reading it for literature's sake, sure, but the God of the Bible, which is what we're calling the show is titled about today, the God of the Bible is a monster who condones all these things. People who worship that God are at risk of accepting these evil things as good things, which is what Aaron said earlier, and you skipped past on this very show. More times than I care to admit, we have had Christians call in saying the Bible does not actually condone slavery. That's a misinterpretation. We go through the passages with them and tell them how it absolutely does, and they come out the other side not saying, okay, the Bible is wrong here. They say, actually, you know what? Sometimes slavery is a good thing then because God said it was good. So that is a problem.
Yeah, I'm not.
And that
I'm
is not
not
something that we want to sit here and make defenses about. We're not here to make defenses about this. We're here to say this book is dangerous. We don't want it banned. We don't want it, nobody's allowed to read it anymore. We want it called out objectively. So universally called out as what it is. For the same reason that we're not going to sit here and say, well, there's some good stuff about Mein Kampf. It really just depends on how you interpret it. We can all just say, Mein Kampf fucking sucks. Read it if you want to read it, but if you like it, you're probably a piece of shit. Same thing with the Bible. Read it if you want to read it. If you live by it, you have a serious problem.
With that type of wording, I say I agree to that. Absolutely, because there are good things to take out and there are bad things to take out. But if you take out the bad things and live by the bad things, that doesn't necessarily mean that the text that you read was bad. It's the way you thought about it and the way you wanted it to be
You
in
do
your
realize
eyes
the
is
stuff
the
we're
way it's
talking about with
bad.
slavery isn't just a story, it's literally the law that was supposed to have been
Mhm.
given by God. So it doesn't have the same level of interpretive flexibility as a parable does. This is saying this literally came from God. These are the things you will and you will not do.
You will not eat shellfish. You will own slaves. It was pretty black and white.
Okay, you know what? I can attest to that. I can agree to that. I like this guy. This was a lot better than previous conversations I've had. That was my only concern because the wording was kind of interesting to me, and I just wanted to clarify and see what the stance on that was. Personally, I live by Jesus. He's just a helper to me. If I'm in times of trouble and no one's around me, I look towards him. But I don't live by the Bible rules because it's 2026, and there are more things to my life than just the text. So I think
encourage you to get a better helper. But you do you,
Say it
bro.
again?
Think.
Well, I'm not in that financial category where I can afford a helper. So that's all I can go with.
Well,
you said Jesus is my helper. I said I encourage you to get a better helper, but you do you.
Yeah. I could think of a better helper that won't cost you, at least in terms of like having to pay someone. Because unfortunately, the lyrics of a Beatles song popped in my head. Calling for help from Mother Mary, speaking words of wisdom to me. There will be an answer, let it be. So let the Beatles provide more insight because they're a little bit closer to our modern mores.
And they were real.
I think the next church I'm going to go with is the Church of Scientology. Then.
I mean, it's as much of a scam as all the other ones. You're not getting anything new. And aliens throwing souls into volcanoes is just as believable as a fucking carpenter rising from the dead.
Absolutely. But if that means I can live a life where I have a support system and have people I can go to and not be criticized for who I am and what I believe in, then I think that's a decision I think we all can make. That's
Ooh,
a place where we
better
want,
be careful
we all
because
want.
you better be careful because Scientology is often, my understanding, pretty strict on what you are allowed to do, who you're allowed to hang out with. I think I need to check, but I think they might be at least as virulently anti-gay as other Christian organizations. So they are not exactly warm and accepting. You're going to have some conformity expectations, in my understanding. I don't have direct experience with it, but my understanding is it's not a happy-go-lucky support system.
Also, for all the people out there that aren't trolling, there are plenty of great atheist and secular organizations. The Oasis Network is awesome, and there's all sorts of humanist networks out there that, and the humanist societies that will give you support structures and resources and whatever you might need without holding you to some bullshit religious standard or asking you to believe in some sky demon. So it's just a way better deal. And with that, Vlad, we're going to move on to somebody who's a little bit more serious, but have an awesome rest of your day, dude. We've got several other callers. Honestly, I who knows if he was trolling or not, but anyone who's going to seriously propose Scientology at the end, I'm going to take the call as seriously as you do, and that is not a serious way to be. I really like. I'm looking at line number 6, and then maybe line number 8, but that's just me. What do you think?
Maybe, but Canadians, can we handle that?
Right. Let's see. So we got DB calling in from the frozen wasteland of Canada, who wants to talk about why the God of the Bible does not suck. DB, you were on the line with Forrest and Aaron. How you doing today?
Hi, guys.
Hello.
I'm good, thank you. It's freezing over here.
I know it. It's a nightmare.
It is.
We are warmed by the light of freedom down here in the USA, so we don't have to worry about that.
Yes.
There you go.
Freedom and diesel engines.
That's what it is. So DB, what do you want to talk about today?
I guess to carry on, take from the last conversation you just had, slavery. If I may, slavery has a different connotation, not a connotation, but a different practice than it does today. The connotation today is quite different and so forth. It's very
not
negative.
really.
The connotation was owning people.
Yeah. Do you think there's...
Even the Bible does state about...
Is there, just really quickly...
You.
DB, is there any circumstance whatsoever, any situation at all, where owning another human being as property is acceptable or good or anything like that?
If it was the culture, I imagine it could be accepted. That's what I'm believing. It was the culture, not just when the Israeli...
I didn't ask you if it was the culture. I asked you, is it good? Is it acceptable? Is it moral? Is it a good thing in any capacity ever to own another human being as property?
If you word it that way, then no, I would say no. But if you word it that way, that's a very isolated question.
That's the way the Bible
to morality.
Right. That's the way the Bible words it. Leviticus, God says, of thy male and female slaves, which you may have, you shall take them from the heathen around you, and from them you may buy slaves, more so from the children among you, blah, blah, blah. They are your possession. Of they you shall buy, and their families you shall buy. They are your possession. You can take them as inheritance for your children. They may inherit them as property. They shall be with they shall be your slaves forevermore. So tell me, DB, was God giving a moral command here? Was that a good thing for God to command when he said slaves are your property?
If I may just explain what a slave was back then, to say whether it was...
It's a human being who's property.
No, I know, but there is a passage in the Bible that says if your slave is free to leave, you may let him go, but if he loves you so much and he wants to stay with you, he may do so.
Nope, that's different.
That's not what that says, and you have just lied through your teeth on that one. That is the slave master gave the slave a wife, and this is specifically for Hebrew slaves. There's different laws there that actually lets Hebrew male slaves go out. And if the slave master gave that slave a wife, the wife still stays with the slave master. And then the former slave can say, I love my wife, I love my kids, I want to stay with them, I'll continue to be your slave. And then they go into permanent slavery. So quite literally, it's not that they love their master, it's that they have been coerced by family and holding that family hostage. So that is actually evil. The fact that you call that love is frankly disgusting, DB. Disgusting.
No, hold on. No, I have to read the passage. It's if you love your master and you want to stay with them.
Nope, you're going to read the whole thing. You're talking about Exodus 21. If you buy a Hebrew slave, he must remain your slave for 6 months, but in the seventh year, you must set him free without cost to him. If he was single at the time you bought him, he alone must be set free. If he married while in your possession, if he was single married when you bought him, both he and his wife must be given freedom. I read the wrong line. Then, 21 verse 4, if you give him a wife and they have children, only the man himself must be set free. His wife and children remain the property of the slave owner. But if the slave loves his wife and children and his owner so that he doesn't want to leave them, he must stand beside the door or the doorpost of the place of worship. The owner punches a small hole through one of his ears with a sharp metal rod, and that makes him the slave for life. So what you are reading is a part of a passage to say, this is how you can keep a slave forever if he says that he loves you and wants to stay there. But even if he doesn't, you keep his wife and you keep his children as property forever. And if he isn't a Hebrew person, then no matter what, he is your property forever. You are lying or ignorant, DB, and either way, it doesn't make slavery moral.
No, like I said, verse 5, if I love my master. That's the only point I was trying to make.
Why is he saying that?
The dynamic.
Why is he saying
between a slave and a master?
Here's the thing. DB, if you're going to take things out of context, I'm going to point to you that the Bible says God does not exist. Go to Psalm 14, verse 1. It says there is no God. And if you tell me read the context, I'm going to say the exact same ducking thing we're talking about this passage in Exodus. This person has been coerced to come back and basically plead fealty to his slave master so he can finally get back with his wife and children. He is being coerced. If you do not understand how coercion works and you think this is love, you have the most disturbing morals that I can imagine. And this further proves, to my mind, just how terrible this book is. It is taking ostensibly good people and making slavery love. What could possibly be showing more how destructive believing this book can be?
Mm-hmm.
The dynamic, the slavery, the relationship between a master and a slave was just different than we understand it today. It was
different in that it was accepted then, it's not accepted now, and now we have to make excuses for why it was okay.
Also, DB, slavery was accepted here in the United States in the 1800s. Did that make it good?
No, that was reprehensible. That was absolutely reprehensible. That
right.
was just,
now I'm going to ask you the same question again that I asked you earlier that you skirted around. Let's see if you can manage to be a good person this time, DB. Is there any context, any situation ever in which slavery is a good thing?
It's a good. There are better options, like Paul says. If you have a chance to get your freedom, do so. But if not,
I'm going to ask you one more time, DB. DB, I need you to look around.
Yes.
See if
there is a context where it might be the lesser of the two evils. It becomes a better option in certain situations.
Then DB, I want to be very clear with you. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
What an evil piece of shit you've twisted yourself into just to defend the God of the Bible.
Come on.
You come in here saying the book is good and slavery is good. Guess what? DB, you lose. Good day, sir.
Mm-hmm. It's fucking, I'm not, no. Oh, come on. Fucking get wrecked, dude. If he had been halfway tolerable.
Quotes of Willy Wonka, the Chocolate Factory.
Right? I would have asked, like, I wasn't going to put up with them anymore. I'm not going to fucking have a debate with somebody that John Brown would have shot. But, like, if at the end of the day, I would love to know, DB, would you like to be a slave under the context of the Bible? Would you like to be a slave under the context that you think it's a good thing? Like, no, you fucking wouldn't. You're a piece of shit, dude. And that's what
you bring up, John. You brought up John Brown. I should also note that because I'm in the Massachusetts area, a lot of the famous families of the 19th century around here were some of the major funders for John Brown. So when I've gone to some of the historic buildings around here and talked about the history, and it's like, yep, and here's where John Brown was basically making one of his speeches to get funding to do, whether it was Harper's Ferry or what, I can't remember, but whatever you think of John Brown, at least New England was like, let's fund getting rid of slavery, even if we have to do it the hard way. And of course, eventually the country as a whole had to do it the hard way, because guess what? Some people wanted to do terrible, evil things because it gave them power over another group, and that ultimately proves that slavery is evil. It requires mass coercion, violence, wailing and gnashing of teeth to maintain, and because we have at least largely ended it in this country, we are better off.
Right. And like that's it. We still have slavery in this country. It could be improved, but at least it isn't what it was. And there's still a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And I hope we can get there, man.
Yeah, I had to qualify, say, better.
Largely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I just love being very explicit about it, because people still grump about it sometimes. Fuck that guy, and fuck everybody who thinks that like that guy. But we have other callers on the line. We have 3 people right now waiting. Looks like we have somebody trying to call in as well. But we still have several lines that are available. So if you're out there and you're a Christian watching this and you're like, man, that DB guy really got it wrong, they don't understand that actually this is the thing that they need to know about Jesus and God and whatever else, call the show, 720-609-2288. Or if you're outside of the U.S., you can use the web link in the description. Specifically, I would love to talk to some Canadians who can tell me that DB doesn't represent you. Because here we don't suffer Canadians very well here in the land of the free. We will never put up with DB or his semi-French filth. Fuck you, Canada. Anyway,
and of course, as we know, one Canadian represents the entire country of tens of millions of people.
All of them. Whatever fucking penguin gave birth to DB and told him about slavery and shit. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Are we going to call Paul afterwards and tell him he's the okay one?
Yeah, Paul and Shannon, they're all right. They're the good ones.
All right.
Whatever. Anyway, let's talk to William, who wants to talk about something from the Discovery Institute. Hello, William. You were on the line with Forrest and Aaron. How you doing today?
Hey, Promise told me to call you guys because me and Promise had a little dust up earlier. She is a beautiful, intelligent girl, and I didn't mean to call her lazy. I guess I just was a little defensive. But anyway, what we were talking about was the new movie by Discovery Institute. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
The Discovery Institute, April 30th, is coming out with a movie called The Story of Everything. It's only going to go for a week. So if you want to know about all the science that points to God and know about everything, maybe you should watch the movie. What do you guys think?
I am going to care as much about that as I do about literally anything else the Discovery Institute or any of these other pseudoscience grifting organizations put out. All the Discovery Institute has ever done and can ever do, just like the Institute for Creation Research and Genesis Apologetics and Answers in Genesis, is misquote and mischaracterize and misrepresent and flat out lie about real science in order to try to make real science look bad because they have no positive evidence for themselves, except for that one time when the Institute for Creation Research did radiometric dating wrong and hasn't shut up about it since 1992. So, yeah, probably not going to care about it because they're all grifters and liars and frauds and charlatans and mountebanks and pseudoscientists. I can go into detail if you'd like.
How about the other
And
guy?
if I may, I remember it was a few weeks ago, and I've actually already ranted about this, but it's definitely worth ranting about again. When I went and saw Project Hail Mary in theaters, and they have all the trailers for other movies coming up beforehand. The first trailer they showed was for this movie with Stephen Meyer, and I wanted to shout and be angry about that, but I didn't necessarily want to disturb everyone else in the theater. I didn't want to be that guy. But the thing that kind of galls me is that here is this movie at the beginning, trying to trash evolution. And what happens in the actual movie I came to watch, Project Hail Mary? They literally save the world using evolution.
Yep.
They literally find a creature, evolve it, and then bring it back to Earth to actually save the world. Oh my goodness, these people do not know what they're putting themselves in front of.
And also, evolution is a major plot point. For I'm not going to give too many spoilers here, but there's a part where a thing evolves to be a problem for the main characters as well, and they have to deal with that. And so, like, evolution is represented quite well. I thought the movie was great for those reasons, and I'm a fucking biologist who studies and teaches evolution for a living. So, yeah, no, the Discovery Institute are a bunch of fucking fraudsters and grifters and mountebanks who, by the way, in their founding with people like Stephen Meyer and Michael Behe and all them, published a thing called the Wedge Document, which outright laid out their plan to incrementally force intelligent design theory, I believe they called it creation theory at the time, but whatever, more and more, and to undermine science and naturalism as a whole more and more until they get to the point in their 20-year plan was that their specific religion was infused into every bit of our social, public, political lives. They wanted to, their stated purpose is to instill a fucking theocracy. And that's true because then when that came out, when that document was leaked, they put out a document saying that's not true. That never happened. And then they couldn't get away from it anymore, so they published another thing called the Wedge Document, So What? Which is saying, yeah, fuck it, we do, because, have you heard about what naturalism does? Hitler believed in evolution, and like, people who believe in evolution do really bad things, and genocide and stuff, because no theist has ever done those things. They're fucking assholes, dude, and all they do, like I said, I've reviewed a ton of their material on my channel. I have a series called Reacteria, where I talk about the shit that those guys and Answers in Genesis and all these fucking losers put out. All they do is they take real science, they cut out one sentence that kind of sounds antagonistic to science, and then they promote to everybody that all these people who study and teach about evolution for a living secretly don't believe in it and know that it's all fraudulent, like Stephen Meyer did on the Joe Rogan Experience when he said that Gerd Mueller, a professor emeritus teaching evolution in the University of Vienna, I believe, he gave a lecture about how, evolution doesn't work and neo-Darwinism is all false and we're just scrambling for shit. And I showed that interview to Dr. Mueller, and he wrote a long response about how this very clearly isn't what I said at all. They're just liars. That's what they do. So I'm not going to listen to anything the Discovery Institute says. They are liars and grifters and charlatans and hucksters who should be selling pencils from a fucking cup, but instead they dress up like scientists and try to sell their religion by dropping it up in a lab coat.
And I just want to add one more example of duplicitousness that's also recent, because our other host on the line, Erica Gutsit-Gibbon, went very much in depth with claims coming from the Discovery Institute, specifically from Gary Luskin, saying, hey, this new study now proves that there's no real, strong relationship between humans and chimps. And not only does it misunderstand so much, but also it includes cropping plots to hide the evidence that shows what he says was a total lie. So straight up image modification to sell the lie. And the Discovery Institute is still trying to argue the same stuff about chimps and humans not being as related as we thought. They are still making the exact same lie, even after being called out. These people cannot be trusted.
Straight up liars, dude.
Yeah, I was surprised by Casey Luskin saying that he's a lawyer and a scientist. I mean, he's too bright to say that. But you know what's interesting? I just thought about this today.
No, he's not.
Sorry.
Really quickly, William.
Go ahead.
William, I'm sorry to cut you off. You just started talking. I'm sorry to interrupt, but just really, really quickly, no, he's not too bright to do that. He's doing it because he's bright enough to try to do it well. Case in point, Kurt Wise was I think he's still alive, actually. Kurt Wise was trained under Stephen Jay Gould, one of the most famous evolutionary biologists in the world, and he has said that it doesn't matter what the data supports. If every bit of evidence comes against biblical creationism and proves evolution, he will be the first to admit it, but he will still always be a biblical creationist because that is what the scripture tells him to believe, so it doesn't matter. This dude got a doctorate in geology, studying under an incredibly famous scientist. He is indoctrinated. Yes. And that is the same thing with Casey Luskin and Michael Behe and all these fucking losers. They're all just they're preachers who are pretending to care about science. And they're trained scientists. They know how to manipulate people by manipulating data. And it's only when other scientists call them out that they then do their shit. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We've been talking for a long time. Please continue.
Well, what's interesting, I just thought about this today, is Answers in Genesis, Reasons to Believe, Hugh Ross's thing that believes you can fit millions of years into the creation story and so forth. These guys use the Bible to back up their, apologetic. But I just thought about this. Discovery Institute never quotes the Bible. I don't think I've heard them quote it once. They just go on. Their big thing is, and by the way, this movie was taken from The Return of the God Hypothesis, the book Stephen Meyer wrote that says the evidence that points to God is the Cambrian explosion, which we went over in our prior thing, the echinoderms, the chordates like us, the brachiopods, arthropods. These fully formed phyla seem to come out of nowhere and so forth without precursors from the Ediacaran. But he also says the Big Bang points toward God, that you have cosmology, you have things like the fine structure constant, 1/137, the strong nuclear, you have all this physics that seems to point to God. So our problem as, you guys are professionals, but as a layman, our problem is the layman's dilemma. We can't be experts in biology and physics, and genetics, and paleontology. All these impact the existence of God. So how do you guys deal with it?
You don't have to be an expert in all these things to spot a grift and to spot logical inconsistency. Here's the question that you need to be asking. What is it about science that works? It's not just that we have evidence. That's a really big thing. The fact that we have evidence for what we're talking about is great, but that's not the fundamental thing. The fundamental thing is when we talk about evolution, the Big Bang, whatever, we are showing you a model that makes novel, testable predictions that we can inductively build from the ground up to make something functional, to run tests on. We are inductively building a functional model using actual evidence and then making novel testable predictions to go back and fact check that model. Creationism doesn't do fucking any of that. Evolution, we have the evidence on the ground, we come up with the theory, and then we say, okay, well, if it's true, we should be able to look over here and find a thing like this, and that's what we find. That's how we know that it's actually working. The entire agricultural industry, the entire biomedical sciences industry, the entire fossil fuel industry are all reliant on evolution working. And our knowledge of it is what makes those industries function. Creationism has none of that. Creationism is nuh-uh, and 'cause the Bible said. They don't have a functional model. They don't know how anything was created. They don't know by what processes creationism works. They don't have anything. They just, God did it. It's just God. Some guy fucking whipped it up because he did, because he's like a space wizard. He's cool like that. They don't make any novel tests. They can't say, well, if God is real and creationism happened, we should be able to find this kind of animal. We should be able to find. Can't do that. Can't make an inductive model. It's all just the book says it, so that's what it is. Can't build a model from scratch. If we threw away all the evidence for evolution, we can go out and rebuild it. If we throw away the Bible, you've got nothing to go off of in terms of creationism. You're not going to find the same information out there. So they are just trying to pretend like they are scientists by lying about what actual scientists say. That's what creationists do. They lie about real science. They misrepresent real scientists. Case in point, Mary Schweitzer. They talk about soft tissues and dinosaur bones all the time. But the person who discovered that is a devout Christian who studies evolution and paleontology and has said repeatedly that people like the Discovery Institute that misrepresent her research are fucking grifters and charlatans that don't know what they're talking about, that are totally liars. They misrepresent real scientists to make it sound like the people who study evolution for a living don't actually believe in it and don't have a good reason to believe in it. And what they offer you isn't good science, isn't a new model, isn't a competing hypothesis. What they offer you is the false dilemma fallacy. If any part of evolution is wrong, then every single part of the Bible must be true. They're liars. They're grifters. They're bad thinkers. They're fucking assholes. So don't fall for their bullshit. You don't have to be an expert in every kind of science. Just check to see if they make any kind of sense, and they don't.
I would also add this. Look at where the money goes in this way.
Yes.
Apparently, the Discovery Institute, you can ask the question, what have they discovered? What have they published? Because apparently they have millions of dollars to make, market, and push out a film. If they have money for that, how much of their money is actually going to discovering and showing their discoveries? And from what I can tell, they've got about two things, diddly and squat. That tells you where their priorities are. Their priorities are propaganda, not propagating science.
Love that.
Well, what was Seth, by the way, earlier today made a really insightful comment. He said that,
sounds like
what you're saying is the Discovery Institute and Christian apologetics, a lot of them are using science, the Big Bang, the KB, whatever, to point toward the existence of God. So what he said was, you're telling me that for millions or thousands of years that we didn't have this knowledge we have today of the Big Bang and, the KB and so forth. It was discovered in the last 100 years or whatever. So why the Discovery Institute, what they're kind of implying is that the people before and the people that don't know the science, don't know the physics, like you guys, the biochemistry, what were they supposed to do? I mean, to prove to themselves the existence of God. Does that make sense?
Do what we do today. If you don't have an answer, you say, I don't know.
Yeah.
I would also say part of this is historical accident in that if you lived in the year 1000, no one was really questioning God anywhere around you, and you thought it was basically obvious. And all the more so if you believed all the various miracle stories from the past and even in the present, because people believed that miraculous stuff was happening around them all the time. It's basically now that we realize, hey, the miracle stuff doesn't seem to happen. When we try to investigate them, they don't seem to happen. All right, well, what reason do we actually have to believe this anymore? And all the more so when you discover, hey, there are people all around the world who have never even heard of our Jehovah guy. What is going on there? How do we explain this? This is part of when we we're discovering more about the world and science coming in and showing us how things worked, and then realizing, oh, so why are we believing this previous stuff? That is a big part of what happens during the Enlightenment. Many people think reason and knowledge and evidence would point to God and even actually help prove which version of Christianity was the one true form of Christianity. It didn't work out, but that is what had been hoped for. And you can see historically the desperation to find anything. My favorite example, I remember reading in a book on like the history of probability and statistics, because I'm a nerd. And one of the early statistical works was showing when it comes to birth rates that when it comes to babies, there are on average men are slightly more often to be born than women. And this early statistician looked at the numbers and said, hey, there is a difference in these populations, that this difference is like almost impossible to be a random coincidence. And he said, like, hey, I do this probability thing that there's a difference in the rate of men versus women. It's like billions to one that this is a fluke. Therefore, the evidence for God is now billions to one in its favor. And everyone else should be going like, what the fuck are you talking about? These are birth rates. How does that relate to theism? But he was just finding any big number and say, well, I don't understand it. Therefore, God done it. And we should call that stupid. And the only reason people would make stupid arguments like that is out of desperation to find anything to make your position look rational.
Well, it used to be, the statement, a plowboy could read the Bible and come to God. Now you got to have PhDs at the Institute for Creation Research. Hugh Ross is a PhD astronomer. He has Foz, a biologist. Now you need to know all the science to get to grips with God. And here's the problem that Reasons to Believe has is obviously you have the Genesis writers got the sun and earth mixed up. They got the earth on day one, sun on day four. And Hugh Ross says, oh, well, yeah, I know that's wrong, but it just meant that it appears on day four, the sun. So he does these exegetical gymnastics to get himself out of trouble. And the plants come on day three, which is way too early from the geological record or whatever. So, and he has animals, dinosaurs and man, living together on days. It's just nuts. So Discovery Institute, I think, is smart enough not to use the Bible to get them to God, but are using, these science.
That's actually
evidence,
a legal
right?
strategy that they did, because in the 80s, there were these important Supreme Court cases, federal court and Supreme Court cases, that basically said you can't teach creationism in schools. It is religion, not science. And we actually even have documentary evidence showing what the creationist movement did, where they were taking out then the word creation and creation science and then replaced it with more secular terminology to avoid that sort of problem. And the Discovery Institute is a product of these court cases saying you can't teach creationism, and if you want to even try to wiggle your way in, you got to basically use more secular sounding language. So yeah, they're not coming in quoting Genesis and using that. They're instead trying to find any other way they can say, oh, here's a secular reason. The bacteria flagellum has to have an intelligent designer rather than a god. But quite literally, we have the documentary evidence where we saw that they literally went through their textbooks, changed the words, but left everything else the same to hide the creation part of it, sometimes doing it incompletely and leaving a transitional form between the old and new version. So yeah, we know this is nothing but a political project. We have the receipts.
Yeah, literally, there's one part in that in Pandas and People book where they literally just went Control F and went through and found everything that said creation, and they changed it for intelligent design. And there's one part where they did it wrong, and it's credesignicists or something like that. And it's like they just
C design proponentists.
That's the one. C design proponentists. That's the one. Yep. It's so stupid.
Well,
yeah, they're hucksters, they're grifters, they're frauds, they're charlatans.
Did the rape project where they spent all this money, and then they found, oh my God, there is too much daughter element, the uranium lead or whatever. You have too much daughter, so it does seem that there's millions of years. But I know how they got an excuse for everything. Oh, accelerated radiometric decay during Noah's flood. That must be the answer. So they
which
instead
would
of just
which
being
would have
honest,
put off,
you know,
which in order for that to happen, because radiometric decay like that releases heat. That's why if you look at the moon, the moon has light parts and dark parts. Those dark parts are lava flows because the moon didn't have a molten core. It went through radiometric decay that produced a ton of heat that created lava that poured out from all over the place. And so, like, when we talk about the radiometric decay that would make that shit possible, if we had all that accelerated decay just squished into the time of the flood, the oceans would be more than boiling. They would be evaporated. That would be like hundreds of hydrogen bombs per square inch of the entire Earth. That is an insane amount of heat that you would need released at that moment. One more miracle, I guess. Heat didn't mean anything in that time. It was a very hot planet. It was fine. Everyone swam through water vapor. It was a steamy place, a sauna for Jesus. Yeah, it's just horseshit on horseshit on horseshit. And that's the thing, man. If they actually had a real thing here, they wouldn't have to bullshit their way around their own statistics. They would just have real numbers. They'd be fine.
But now ICR, Ants, Genesis, whatever, they're 6,000 year guy. Can we give Discovery Institute any credit for at least believing the consensus of millions of years, the standard age of the universe, Earth, and that sort? Can you give them credit for that?
I would, because mostly they're just not talking about it because they know it's savvy. When you have dedicated liars, the fact that they sometimes say true things doesn't take away the fact they just know how to lie better for their political purposes. So, no, that just shows how much slime is flowing through their veins. Obviously, I'm not being very kind to these people, but when they go and they collect money so they can lie to children to try to change laws to turn us into a theocracy, no, fuck them to hell. Mm-hmm. The hell that doesn't exist.
Absolutely. It's a shame there isn't a hell.
But at least they're talking about the Cambrian, the Devonian. They talk about realistic ages and periods of the Earth's history, where Answers in Genesis, it's just, they don't even believe that. I mean, it's just total craziness. So
right. So Answers in Genesis
by the way, are you guys going to go see the movie? I mean,
no.
I'm a big believer in looking at the opposition. So if you look at the opposition and see what they're saying, then you can. And plus, it could make good content for you guys. I think it gives it, at least you know where they're coming from and you can address the arguments. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Content sounds like fun, but in terms of just seeing it for myself, I have many better things to do, both in my actual personal life and also I could just be sleeping or doing anything. Like, there's no way I'm going to sit through that shit just for myself.
I should also note, Forrest has already been producing content to debunk creationists for years, and honestly,
including the Discovery Institute.
Yeah, and two things to note here. One, I don't expect anything new to be in this documentary because there hasn't really been anything new in creationism to talk about. And two, this is probably not even going to be that effective a movie because their target audience, if it's a younger one, they're not going to go to a movie theater to watch this. They want TikTok videos at that sort of digestible length of things, which of course is our territory. So yeah, once we see the TikTok dance videos with Carrie Luskin, we'll respond to those, I'm sure.
Exactly, yes. Nobody likes TikTokers. TikTok sucks.
Yeah. So when the Bible mentions the earth hangs on nothing, these Bible verses they use to prove, that, the earth's round, it's in space. Does that seem compelling to you?
I'm sorry, repeat that question?
Well, there's Bible verses like it says that God stretches out the heaven. Oh my gosh, that means God saw the expansion of the universe. He saw the Big Bang. He predicted it.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, no, it does not. It's not compelling to me at all. No, sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah. I thought you were asking about them saying it, not the Bible. Yeah, no, 0% compelling to me.
And I would say the big reason that's not compelling is people only interpret it that way after they knew what the answer was supposed to be. No one interpreted stretching out the heavens as an expanding universe until the 20th century when we discovered the expanding universe. I would like to be proven wrong about that, but to the best of my knowledge, no one proposed that sort of meaning until much later when it became expedient to make the text say that. Similarly, when it talks about the circle of the earth and claiming circle is sphere, circle is ball, it is a complete desperation move because one thing, circles are flat. Secondly, the text talks about a circle being drawn on the surface of the water, and you cannot draw three-dimensional objects on 2D surfaces. You can try, all the harder if you're trying to do it on a wet surface, but that's another detail. Key thing is, we know the cosmology of the world at this time, or what they believe the cosmology of the world was at this time. It's completely consistent with that. And when you try to force it into 21st century cosmology, you have to put every other verse on life support to make it even begin to cough. And I don't find that even worthwhile. It tortures the text just so that way we can make it say what we want it to say. I try to treat the Bible as a product of its time and appreciate what it is as a product of that time. In the same way I do that with the epics of Homer, when I do that with Indian epics, etc. I try to look at them in that context and as literature. And when you do that, it becomes much more interesting, it's much less forced, and it leads to actual discoveries about what humans can do and have done.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out, like, you find these verses in the Bible that say some cool stuff that kind of, if you squint your eyes at it, sounds like science. The Bible also flatly says that pi is equal to 3, and the Bible also flatly says that bats are birds, and the Bible also flatly says that insects have 4 legs, and the Bible also flatly says that stars can fall from the sky and land on the earth. These are all things that are just profoundly ignorant things to say. So if you're going to believe, well, it says the earth is a circle, and that kind of means this, what the fuck did it mean when stars can land on the planet? What does that mean, you know? And so, like, for me, it's the same thing as if I go back and I look at, you know, Democritus, a few thousand years ago, believed that atoms exist. He theorized that thing. Great. Awesome. Also believed in a bunch of silly ass shit, like spontaneous generation and whatnot, and that there was a guy in the sky throwing lightning bolts. So, not going to take him seriously on everything, but that was an interesting idea. If the guys who wrote the Bible wrote something about the earth maybe being round, cool. That wasn't a new idea. Eratosthenes already had that figured out. Aristotle knew the earth was round quite a bit before the Bible was written. So, like, not compelling to me in any meaning, in any serious way. We already knew the earth was round, and I believe by the time the Bible was written, we already knew how big it was too. I don't remember when Eratosthenes was around.
Well, Eratosthenes is 3rd century BC, Aristotle is 4th century, and when you say the Bible, there's of course a whole lot of books of the Bible. Some are much older than that, some are not nearly that old. The entire New Testament is well after that time.
I was going to say, at least by the time of Jesus, and by the time that, like, the Bible was compiled together, we knew for goddamn sure that the earth was a sphere about 24,000 miles around. We knew that. We had that figured out. And so there's, it's not compelling to me when they also get a lot of other shit very wrong. And overall, it just looks like a book put together by some folks who had some ideas.
Well, speaking of things wrong, they believed in the canopy theory forever, you know, that there's an ocean of water above the dome. And they finally gave up on that. Do you give them credit for saying, okay, that's just, don't use that? You know, answers just as arguments not to use anymore. Do you give them credit for that, for abandoning the camping
because they had to be dragged kicking and screaming into admitting that it was wrong after they got embarrassed so many times that they had to try to save their reputation by saying, all right, yeah, I guess we'll get that one. And meanwhile, as Aaron pointed out earlier, they are still taking in millions of dollars worth of donations to lie to children. So no, for the same reason, if Kent Hovind were to come out today and say, hey, I've stopped beating my wife, I'm not going to give him props. I'm going to say, hey, you're a piece of shit, you remain a piece of shit, and I'm not going to sit here and talk you up for acting halfway decent. The fact that they started being almost honest about one of their dog shit hypotheses doesn't mean they're a respectable organization or they deserve any credit from me.
You guys were talking about the Bible. Do you want to hear one of the most problematic verse in the Bible? And Bart Ehrman's, for example. Here it is.
I mean, if you want, man,
Job,
we've been for like 28 minutes. All right, go ahead. What is it?
Job obviously kills his kids, kills his farm animals, his cat, his dog, whatever. Kills and puts them through pure hell. And then God says, okay, my bad. I guess you do believe in me, my God. Then he says, I'll give you 10 new children, 10 new cows. Don't you think Joe might have been a little bit fond of the kids he did have? I mean, imagine a guy if someone's to kill your kid.
It's horseshit.
Don't worry, I got other kids I can.
Yep.
I think Christians really they don't really understand, like your previous caller, how problematic both the Old and New Testament is. And they've got to give up on these stupid things like Moses writing Genesis, the priestly writer in the 6th century, the Yahwehist writer in the 10th century. Those are the writers. It's a blended narrative, the Noah flood thing. It's two writers. You can't tell these unless you know Hebrew. And of course, Genesis ending in 2:4 is the P writer and the J writer is the second one. So they just, it's just pathetic. The people that go to these hip, cool churches have no clue about their own Bible. It's just really sad, much less the science.
Yeah, man. Anyway, we've got some other calls we're going to jump to, but I appreciate your time,
hey,
William.
thanks, God. Bye.
Take care. Be nice to Promise next time. Spawn point 0 in the chat. There's a phone number on the screen on here saying, I'm unconvinced that atheism is rational. As defenders can't defend their worldview. The only remaining move is to block you like fragile little snowflakes. We've got, let's make sure here, 2,000 people watching right now. Pick up that phone. 720-619-2288 or use a web link in the description. 2,000 people would love to hear it. Call in. We'll defend our worldview. Real easy to do. Waiting for you. We've got 2 other calls on the line. Both of them are atheists. So just before we get to them, we might take one of these guys next. But I just want to remind everybody, we prioritize theist calls. So if you call in and you're a theist, and you're saying that we should believe in God or gods, or we should believe in Jesus, and we should read the Bible, and we should blah, 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 this is your chance. You go straight to the front of the line. We take your call first. We just took a couple of theist calls back to back. So pick up that phone, 720-619-2288. If you are a Bible believer or a science denier, if you want to complain about evolution or the age of the earth or the Big Bang or LGBT people or vaccines or the shape of the earth or the age of the earth or chemtrails or whatever fucking thing, 720-619-2288. Or call, use the web link in the description if you're outside of the U.S. And that'll be, you'll be up next. In the meantime, who do you want to talk to? I barely
I try to
interested
give priority
in 15.
to those who wait the longest. I try to do that.
Okay, yeah, I'll go with that. Let's talk to Jonathan, who is an atheist who wants to talk about prophecies. Jonathan, you're on the line with Forrest and Aaron. How you doing today?
I'm doing good.
All right. So, yes, we hear you, but now I'm getting a vision. You want to talk about Revelation.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just to clarify, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The clarification I want is, I just saw it recently in the book. It said something about islands and mountains moving away before the Antichrist came.
Okay. Okay. What about it?
Okay.
Revelation 13, Revelation 14, something like that.
Oh,
this literate motherfucker over here.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know if y'all are looking for it. I'm kind of listening and watching all at the same time.
Oh, don't watch us. There's a delay. We'll look really weird.
Okay. All right. And just quickly looking, Revelation 16, talking about every island fled away and the mountains could not be found. At least that's in the NIV translation. So Rev chapter 16.
I'm looking it up.
Verse 20 is where it mentions the islands and mountains. I have not memorized the Bible. I am good with search engines.
People getting real excited about plate tectonics.
All right. But,
so what about
Jonathan,
that is compelling to you?
Yeah, tell us about what you're thinking about here.
Okay. Me and my dad have crazy discussions about the prophecy. So what I'm trying to clarify is all the stuff that's written in Revelations is supposed to come true in Revelation. That the whole thing about Revelations is it's a whole prophecy, right?
Largely, it's prophetic, it's visionary, it's very symbolic. it's very easy to have variant interpretations, and there's thousands of years of theologians disagreeing on how to read some of the things. Some things we're more confident about than others.
Okay, because I also read another spot in there too where it says all the grass needs to be burnt. I mean, it's all burnt away. Some of this stuff. That's why I'm just trying to get more of a clarification for it. That's because there's a lot of stuff in there that just don't make a lot of sense, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So one thing that's going on here as well that might be worth noting. So in verse 19, it talks about the great city is split into three parts and the cities of the nations collapsed. In Revelation, when you try to use the secret decoder ring to figure out what the symbols are, most Bible scholars will interpret and say, when they say the great city, it is talking about Rome. It is talking about the Roman Empire, and how basically in this case, John is having these visions where he's talking about how God is going to basically come on down, find Rome, kick its ass, takes its names, and bring in the good times for all the good boys and girls who followed the Mosaic laws, and everyone else gets wailing and gnashing of teeth and other kinds of punishments. I would have to double check here, but when it talks about the islands falling and the mountains going and things like that, part of this might also be influenced by actual historical events roughly in this time. I need to double check if this is part of it, but in 79 AD, you have Mount Vesuvius blow its top and basically destroy Pompeii and Herculaneum. And this was like this big event for the Romans as well, because these were major cities that people toured and stayed at. People thought this was some sort of wrath of the gods upon them, and it's possible that John or someone like him could have read this as a sign of oncoming judgment and is incorporating that kind of imagery in here. So the fact that it's pointed at Rome and it has this idea of fire and earthquakes and mountains and islands disappearing and things like that, this could be related to those kinds of events, but I'm not confident enough to say for sure if this verse is influenced by the Mount Vesuvius eruption.
Okay.
I have nothing of import to contribute to this moment, but I was scrolling through, I was just flipping through my Bible here on Revelation, and I found one of my notes on the side here that led me to read this. Is in chapter 17, and I'm just going to read this from the new NIV, so it's in modern English. This is talking about the whore of Babylon, the sucking seven-headed dragon-riding space prostitute. The angel carried me away, and there I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was dressed in purple and scarlet, was glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. She held in her cup she held in her hand a golden cup filled with abominable things and the filth of her adulteries. And in my King James Version, it just says, a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. Dude, golden cup of abominations? That's a fucking metal. That's a great song title. Like, that's rad. I would listen to that album. Cup of abominations and the filth of fornication? That's a fucking sick, dope lyric.
It is.
Yeah.
That's rad.
What do we do?
Yep.
In my notes, I have that highlighted, and I have the note that just says metal. It's fucking, hell yeah.
And it's also interesting that because Forrest took us to chapter 17, this is actually where we get the secret decoder ring, because it talks about the beast having 7 heads, and it says, all right, this is what this means. The 7 heads are the 7 hills on which the woman sits. And this woman is sitting on 7 hills, and there is a very famous city on 7 hills, Rome. And the reason she's also becoming known as this Babylon figure is Babylon is also famous in the Old Testament tradition as the ones who came in and destroyed the temple. So when the Romans came in and destroyed the temple in 70 AD, they became the new Babylon. And we see that kind of imagery in several other apocalyptic texts in roughly the same time period. So this is how partially we can decode the symbols that John has in this text.
So does that lead to the 3rd temple? Or is there only supposed to be 2 temples?
Well, at this point, there were two temples, and John is talking about a new temple coming down from heaven and then becoming the ultimate temple when basically heaven and earth pass away and God dwells in the world that has been renewed. That's the idea. And so the final version of that temple coming down from heaven is described in chapter 21 of Revelation, I think. And it's got some like massive dimensions of gates and walls made out of pure gold and kind of absurd things like that. Like metallurgically, it's a terrible idea to build a wall that tall made out of soft metal like gold. But nonetheless, that's the vision that is being placed there.
Okay, so there's not actually supposed to be an actual third building, an actual third temple being built on Earth.
The only reason Christians started saying that was to fix a different problem, because Jesus predicts, like, for example, in Mark 13, the temple will be destroyed and that'll be coming by soon after that, because that generation will see those things. So some interpret that as saying, oh, the temple needs to be rebuilt so it can get wrecked, because that's the secret source code hack you need to do to bring Jesus back. And so there are people that promote Israel and rebuilding of the temple for the sake of the destruction of the Jews there to bring on the ultimate apocalypse. So a lot of the pro-Israel, the Zionist groups here in the US, are actually anti-Semitic in that way. They want Judaism to survive so it can get wrecked by their God. It's kind of disgusting.
So that brings it to where everybody's supposed to see Jesus in the sky. That I haven't
which
seen.
Which also has a bit of a geography problem. We mentioned earlier the whole round Earth, flat Earth problem. So I think, what was it? I forget his name, Pat Robertson. I believe part of the mission that he had with 700 Club and TBN and things like that was to have cameras in Jerusalem, so that way when Jesus came back, they could transmit it so everyone around the world could see Jesus return. Because otherwise you realize, oh, basic fact the earth is round, people on the other side of the world can't see someone coming down in Israel. So you got to use TV cameras to transmit the signal. So yeah, clever way to get around that problem that the Bible has wrong geography.
That's kind of funny because the Bible does say that every eye will see. How is that possible?
Yes,
that comes that round Earth deal.
Yep, yeah, it requires flat Earth, and the thing is, even though educated people knew that the Earth was round, there were still flat Earthers. In fact, one of them, Lactantius, he was the tutor of Constantine, so way up there, but also flat Earther. We have his texts, and yeah, he believed that the idea that the Earth is round, that the people on the other side of the Earth are upside down, was ridiculous. Nope, Earth is flat. And this was the tutor to Constantine. Holy shnikes. So even smart people could be that, but fortunately they were mostly the exception, or they just were outside of the sciences. Like if you read the Talmud and the debates that are there between the rabbis, they also assume a flat Earth with a dome and try to explain where the sun goes at night based on that dome, flat Earth cosmology, and you really only finally see the rabbinic tradition move away from that in like the 11th, 12th century with people like Maimonides saying, hey, I did some science. This isn't how it works. We need to up our game, guys. He obviously used different language than I just did, but Maimonides is one of the most respected figures in rabbinic Judaism, and he had a massive influence, including getting people on board with at least knowing some basic science and philosophy and using that to organize the religious traditions.
Okay. Because I'd also like to respond to one of his questions, too, about the woman holding a cup.
Yeah.
If she's coming on heels, but the mountain's already gone, how does that work?
As much as anything else, you know, it all means nothing.
I think because it already tells you the hills are, well, first off, it tells you the heads are hills, and the hills are supposed to indicate the kingdom and this, or the city in this case, Rome and the Roman Empire. So these are all symbolic ways of pointing at destruction to Rome. So you have to realize when you have all these symbols, it's very frightening to take them too literally, especially when you have symbols on top of symbols. In fact, I think the best way to understand Revelation is a collection of memes, because the big decoder ring is seeing all the stuff from the Old Testament that's being referenced and how it's being all put together. And I'm just imagining some person in, say, 2010 who just lives their life completely on the internet, and all they do is just scroll through and collect memes and then try to put that together to turn into a novel. And you would look at this and go, what the hell is this person talking about? And you would have to go and realize, oh, here are like the 80 different memes that were popular in 2010 to finally decode that. That, I think, is how to best approach Revelation. It is a meme lord from about 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, and it doesn't say anything about it because it says in starting with verse 9 here in that same one, like the 7 heads are 7 hills where the woman sits. There are also 7 kings, 5 have fallen, 1 is not yet to come. The blah blah. The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not received a kingdom. The one will blah blah blah, and it tells what they do. The waters you saw where the prostitute sits are peoples, multitudes, legions, and languages, and blah 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 blah. It doesn't say what the cup is supposed to represent. I think that's just an extra little flowery. It's like saying the color of the thing she was writing and the color of her clothes is just adding details.
Oh, a lot of this imagery, especially the more sexual imagery, is based on stuff from the Old Testament, like Hosea, where he's constantly using sexual assault imagery for how God treats Israel, and using this same sort of imagery of the abuses of Israel by Rome. So especially like with this Jewish war and the destruction and enslavement of lots of people from the Holy Land after that point. And so this is being said, hey, look at all the persecution Jews or Jewish Christians have suffered. This is the sort of abominations that the Romans have done, and they have gotten drunk on the blood of the prophets. This kind of imagery is, again, in several other apocalyptic sources from this rough time. So, yeah, like I say, John is a meme lord, and you have to go and collect all the memes that he was referencing.
So how does the two witnesses fit in?
Oh,
no idea.
You have just stepped on probably one of the biggest uncertainties in the study of Revelation. Some people look for like historical analogs, like, oh, maybe it's Moses and Elijah. Maybe it's supposed to be John the Baptist and James, the brother of Jesus. Lots of combos have been tried. There's no consensus as far as I can tell. I'm actually trying to publish an article that partially addresses this. So that's why I have any of this knowledge in my head, but it's a real big uncertainty about chapter 11 of Revelation is like considered like the biggest what the halibut is going on here. How do we square these weird things? And I'm trying to help with that, but it's an uphill battle.
Anyway, with that, Jonathan, we've got a couple of people waiting on the line, including one theist, so we're going to move on to the next call. But I appreciate you hanging out with us and asking us about things.
You're right. You're good. All right, I'll catch y'all next time.
Take care. Bye-bye. To the person in chat who said the cup was from 2 girls, 1 cup, go to bed. We've got...
Just because I said meme lore doesn't mean you have to bring up that one, okay? You could have mentioned Ugandan knuckles, all right? That would have at least been an old reference without the ew.
Go to bed. Just go to bed. You're done for the night.
By the way, does anyone in chat remember Ugandan knuckles?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Okay.
That shit was wild. Let's talk with Omar, who's a theist who wants to present a first cause argument. It's not going to go well. Omar, you're on the line with Forrest and Aaron. How you doing today?
Hey, good. How you guys doing?
I'm all right. I'm all right.
Okay, yeah. So I'd called. I've called a few times before, but last time I called, someone had mentioned Aaron Adair, so I saw that you were on today, so I decided to go ahead and call and give you my argument here. Essentially, it's kind of like, so let's say we were to hit the rewind button and go back in time, all the way back to whatever the first, the first event, the first moment, whatever you want to call it, the first tangible, measurable, whatever it may be. I guess my argument kind of hinges on what caused that.
Well, I first question the premise. We don't know if there was a first moment. We can't actually determine that with our scientific evidence at this time.
As opposed to what?
Possibly that there has always been time, and you can just, any moment you can find a moment before that and going back indefinitely. We cannot discount that possibility on our current scientific evidence.
Well, Okay, so let's take this moment in time right here. Prior to this moment, has a set number of events occurred, or is a growing number of events occurring? If a set number of events occurred, that means there must have been a first moment, correct?
Well, and then, again, I'm going to say, I deny your premise. Instead, there was no first moment, so there's no point from which you are counting. You can only count from 2 already set points, and then count how many moments are between those 2. Instead, this is fundamentally the same thing if you just have a straight-up number line. The number line can go to negative infinity and to positive infinity. And no one says there's any problem counting from 1 to 2, even though there were an infinite number of numbers before the number 1.
Okay, so you're saying prior to right now, like the number of events that occurred, it could be like a growing number, which is to say infinite.
That would not be infinite. Growing would mean that there's a number that could be bigger that you're adding to. Infinite is not the same as that. In fact, infinite is not even a number. You can't actually do arithmetic operations on infinity. Instead, you don't even have this count that you are increasing that's going on here. This requires going a bit into things like finite set theory, but this is an area of mathematics that shows, hey, everything here dealing with these infinities is consistent. There is no logical problem with infinite sets so long as we are careful in our definitions.
We're not woke here. We don't believe in that finite set theory. There's only 2 finite sets.
Okay, I mean that's what my argument hinges on. I'm not really understanding though. So you're saying prior to right now, an infinite number of events could have occurred.
That is a possibility, and I get a lot of this is going to be hung up on infinite. So allow me to bring in some stuff from set theory to show you how weird infinity is. But once you appreciate that this is what infinity does, it makes this problem that you have kind of dissolve. So the most basic way in set theory of how we say one set is bigger than another is if you try to line up all the members of one set and another set, and can you actually make a map 1-to-1 between every member in one set and the other. If you can't do that, one of them is bigger than the other. So I'm holding up some fingers. On my right hand, or at least my right hand, I'm holding out 5 fingers. My left side is 2. And you would say, well, 5 is bigger than 2. But another way you can do that is you can line up and say, this finger and this finger line up, this finger and this finger line up, but these 3 fingers have no member that they can map to onto my other hand. Therefore, the set here is bigger because it has members that can't be aligned in the other set. If we take that way of comparing sizes, we can do some weird stuff with infinity. And here's how we can blow the mind. Take the set of all round natural numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., forever. Imagine all those numbers. Now, imagine just the set of all even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, etc. And now, Omar, which of these 2 sets do you think is bigger, the set of all numbers or the set of all even numbers?
I don't know. As far as I understand, you can't have a set of an infinite amount.
We do it in math all the time. I just said all even numbers. That was a sentence that has no logical contradiction. And we know there's no largest even number. There's no largest number, because any number you have, you can always add 1 to it. With any even number, you can always add 2 to it to get another even number. There's no largest even number. There's no largest whole number. Therefore, there has to be infinitely many. So that is basically a requirement of our mathematics, that these sets need to be infinite in size. So I'll ask again, of those 2, which would you say is the bigger set? The ones of all the round numbers or all the even numbers?
Round numbers.
And why is that?
Well, because it includes even and plus more.
And that makes total sense. But if we go back to our careful mapping thing, every single number in the round numbers, we can map to one and only one number in the even set. So if I take every number in the round set and just multiply it by 2, I get the other member in the other set. and vice versa. I could take every number in the first one, divide by 2, and go back. So I can do a 1-to-1 mapping between each one. So 1 would line up with 2, 2 would line up with 4, 3 would line up with 6, and so on. And because you can line up every single member in those two sets 1-to-1, the set of all round numbers and the set of all even numbers is the exact same size. They are the same size infinity. And this was one of the major discoveries of Georg Cantor in the 19th century, that all the natural numbers is the same as all the even numbers. In fact, all of the rational numbers, all the numbers that you can write as fractions of two whole numbers, even that set is all the same size infinity. It's only once you get to the irrational numbers, which include like pi, the square root of 2, etc., that then actually becomes a larger infinity. And yeah, there are different size infinities in transfinite set theory. Does it blow one's mind? It should, because it sounds absurd, but it's mathematically consistent and it solves a bunch of problems, which is what Cantor was able to figure out a while ago. So the reason I bring this up is here are now two sets that we would think are different size, but they're actually the same. All the numbers and all the even numbers, they're actually the same size. So the same thing here, that there being an infinite number of points in the past doesn't require growing, because in the same way that we could still create a map if all those were just even number points, it still maps to all the whole number points. The same infinity applies. So this is why I'm saying there's no logical issue with infinite sets into the past. We can do the math. It's not scary.
Okay, so I don't know, that kind of doesn't really make sense to me. So like, okay, so let's say if everything, let's say the cosmos is like 14 billion years old. That means we had to wait 14 billion years to reach this point right here, right now. But let's say the cosmos is infinite years old. Then we would have to wait infinity seconds or whatever time length to reach right now, which as far as I understand, we would still have to be waiting before we could reach this moment. Like,
so
how could we possibly
there's a couple
reach
things
this
here.
moment?
Well, because first off, you are treating infinity as if it's a point on the timeline, and that is not the case. You don't have to count an infinite number of steps from some point. Any point that you start on the timeline is going to be a finite number of seconds away, in the same way that there are an infinite number of numbers before the number 1. But going from number 1 to number 2 is no problem. You don't have to say, well, how did you count from 1 to 2? Didn't you have to count the infinite number of numbers before that? No, there was no problem there.
Okay, I mean, I kind of understand what you're saying in a theoretical sense, but I guess I'm not understanding how could that apply to physical reality.
What it could be is just that for every single event, whatever its cause was before that, and that effect had a cause, and you could just have that chain go back without end, and there is no logical contradiction with that. There have been metaphysical arguments to try to say that that doesn't work. They have not been successful in convincing philosophers as of yet, at least, or I haven't found them convincing. So if there isn't a logical problem, the metaphysical arguments don't seem to add up. And right now, our scientific evidence can't point one way or the other. I have to be agnostic if we have an infinitely large or infinite number of points in the past. This is a to be determined.
Okay, but I know I already said this and you kind of replied already, but then, I mean, again, so then wouldn't that mean we have to wait an infinite time length before reaching this point? Maybe I'm kind of getting... Sorry, I'm not
I know that's coming up again, but well, I'll say it two different ways. One is you are assuming from some sort of starting point, as if that starting point is infinitely far away, but any point you choose is always finitely away. But even with this idea that it takes an infinite amount of time, well, then you just wait an infinite number of seconds. You have literally all the time in the world for doing the waiting. So again, there's no actual logical problem here. It's just that an infinite number of things happened before. In the same way, if you think the universe is going to exist forever, and especially if you are going to believe that you have an infinite afterlife, there will be an infinite number of seconds after this point. I would also say, just from symmetry, if you think it's impossible to have something go infinitely into the past, why can't then this also tell you there's only a finite thing into the future, and no, you don't have immortality. You will die even if God exists. You probably don't accept that, so I would say just from symmetry, if there's nothing wrong with an infinite future, there's nothing wrong with an infinite past.
Well, because the past has already occurred, whereas the future has not occurred already. So the future is like a potential infinity versus making a past infinite claim is making a claim of an actual infinity. Whereas, for the future, it's just a claim of a potential infinity, which I guess would never be reached.
So this also goes into a philosophy of time issue. And it sounds like you are subscribing to what is called the A theory of time, and that is not compatible with special and general relativity. On the B theory of time, all moments exist equally. There is no absolute present, and so there's no absolute past or future. All times exist equally in this block universe. So, in fact, if there is an infinite future, it has to be actual in the same way the past is actual and the present is actual.
My understanding of B theory of time is that the overall system still does progress forward in time. It's just that points relative to one another can look like it goes back in time. If you take 2 points and, relative to one another, it could kind of go back in time, but the overall system still moves forward, as far as I understand.
That's not accurate. Like I say, for the block universe, all moments exist equally, and we just take time as moving in one direction on a coordinate in the same way moving forward on a space coordinate. So me moving, like walking forward and changing my coordinate that way, time is the same way. And every step in front of me exists. So we're saying the same thing with time. Every moment in front of me exists. And also every moment behind me exists, just like every step behind me exists. And not just potentially, but actually. And this is a requirement for special relativity because if you get something going the speed of light, such as a photon, it actually doesn't experience time at all. So for special relativity to be consistent with everything, no, all the moments in the block universe have to exist. Not just locally.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I don't have much of a response to that. To be honest, I'm not totally comprehending how that relates to, I guess, the argument I presented.
My understanding is that you wanted to have some sort of first cause, and I'm undermining the premise that there even was a first cause that needs an explanation. If there has always been some sort of chain, then we don't have to explain how the chain started. It just has always existed.
So if we have to wait an infinite length of time, should we not still be waiting? How did we reach this point then?
In the same way, I don't have to count all infinite points before getting to 1, before I can count from 1 to 2. Again, I've repeated this a few times already. There is no requirement that there's no real contradiction here. And again, this is following on the fallacy that infinity is some point just really far away. That's not the case. There is no starting point to start counting from.
But without, okay. Yeah, I guess, okay, sure. I mean, I guess I feel like we'll just go in circles if I respond to that. I'm not.
Infinite circles?
Yeah, I guess so.
Sorry, I gotta have some levity.
Well, let me ask you this. If I were to read up on something to better understand what you're saying, what would you suggest I should kind of read up about?
All right, that's a bit tough. So I remember reading some of the responses to infinity paradoxes from the philosopher Wes Morrison. Graham Oppie has also been a philosopher that's dealt with this to some degree. On the more pro side of like infinity paradoxes, things like that, Chris Coons, I think, is a philosopher who says there are issues. I don't remember if I'm saying his name right. I believe the last name is Koons, Koons. So there, and of course, William Lane Craig has been part of these debates since at least the 80s. Of course, he has the problem that he has to literally deny the B theory of time to keep pushing the A theory of time. So he has to find like the 3 physicists around that don't follow that kind of physics. So you can imagine that's a bit of an uphill battle for him. And I think even most philosophers who want infinity paradoxes to work for Christianity don't go that route. But it's been a while since I've read the most recent literature on that. And just in general, if you want to learn about infinity, let's see here. Trying to think what books out there that talk about infinity itself. It's been a while since I can't think of good examples off the top of my head. But if you start looking up stuff about like Georg Cantor, Georg, Cantor, Cantor, you could probably start exploring those people and then the people who talk about those people and get in the direction of knowing more about this. It's fascinating in its own right. Whether or not it gets you to God or atheism, it's still fascinating mathematics.
Okay. Yeah, I got a couple of names here. Let me repeat the first couple you said. Wes Morrison?
Yes,
and
Morrison,
Graham
Morrison, I think.
Oh, Morrison.
Yeah, and then Graham Oppy. Oppy is Oppy. And I am impressing myself. I am horrendous at spelling, but I'm doing a good job at the moment. But please triple check that I've spelled these things correctly.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's cool. That gives me something to kind of check out. And yeah, I kind of understand what you're saying about between 1 and 2. I guess in theory there should be an infinite number of points, meaning if you were to move on a timeline, you get halfway there, and then from that point again you get halfway there.
Oh yeah,
I guess in theory you should never reach the second spot.
Right?
But,
yeah, that's
so I understand
Zeno's paradox.
Yeah, I understand it kind of theoretically how it's weird, but I guess I have a little bit of trouble trying to.
I also just remembered one more
guess.
source for you to check out. The YouTube channel Majesty of Reason. I forget his full name, but last name is Schmidt. He's a young up-and-coming philosopher and has spent a lot of time talking about infinity paradoxes and things like that. He's got a couple of recent philosophy papers in there. He goes in depth in his videos. And as much as you can understand philosophy, he is very good at explaining those things. You will have to be patient and probably have to rewind a number of times because a lot of the philosophical jargon takes a few times to digest and understand, but Schmidt is pretty darn good at that. So the channel is Majesty of Reason. That's a channel I can recommend if you want to learn more philosophy or find a new way to fall asleep at night.
Okay. Yeah, no, I have no problem watching things on repeat. So yeah, I'll kind of look at, I guess, so this is more of a philosophical issue rather than a scientific issue?
It's scientific in that we could potentially determine one way or the other if the universe has an infinite past. There's possibilities of what we could explore or what theory or what models actually allow for it and which models don't allow for it. There are models that actually have the universe starting from a completely spatial condition and then transition to having both a space and a temporal condition. That's actually something that people like Stephen Hawking had worked on back in the 80s and has been developed to some degree by other physicists. So it's not just philosophy. It's mind-bending in the same way good philosophy can be. But plenty of physicists who are, doing the math and trying to see what works, what doesn't work, what conditions are required, and potentially what experiments could we do to see one way or the other how the universe goes. I am not on the forefront of that, but I guess I'll shout out yet another channel. If you guys are familiar with Dr. Blitz, he also, is much more up on this literature than I am. So he can also speak to this with more authority than I.
Okay, Blitz, Blitz.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, I wish I could respond to you more, but I probably gotta learn this stuff a little better, understand it a little better before I could really give you my thoughts on that. So I guess that's
well. To be fair, I need to learn it better. this stuff is interesting. It's mind-bending. I don't know nearly as much as the real experts there, and even they would probably tell you there's so much more to learn. Let's explore together.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, okay, I'll check that out, and hopefully I can get something out of it and call back again sometime.
Okie doke.
Cool, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yep.
I had nothing interesting that you couldn't cover 10 times better. I've been over here texting my wife, and I wrote 2 + 2 = 4 if you believe, because we covered that call. We're just I've been doofing and goofing and doing nothing. And my lady was texting me sweet things. What a nice lady.
I was also answering the occasional text from my wife, so I was trying to tax a little.
You were killing it. Like, you were covering concepts that I have no bearing in. You were covering shit that made me both glad that we are friends and glad that I'm not a physicist. Because that's just wild shit. You know what I mean? Wild shit.
Well, to be fair, my area of expertise, my area of focus and research is actually physics education.
Right.
So that's where I spend my time researching, trying to publish. I wish I could do more to contribute to cosmology and theoretical physics, but I was near the bottom of my graduate class in grad school. Like, I could tell, like, these classes are hard, these guys are struggling, and yet I wish I could even understand the minus sign mistakes that they are making.
Right.
So I try to give mad respect to those who really push the ball forward, and I'm just here cheerleading as I try to also help other people learn more about the universe and get up to that level, because the more people who are prepared, the more people who can make even greater advances and even greater geniuses. If I can help increase the number of Einsteins, and me not being one of them, I've done something better for the world.
Yep, that's exactly how I feel as well. Like, I published my shit from grad school for my first master's, and I'm currently trying to get another paper out right now. I'm in the final rings of that, of just like getting some content out. I'm in the middle of my PhD, and we're publishing just like, here's the needs assessment of what we're about to study, and then we're going to publish the other things. But as soon as this is done, I might publish things for like a year or two afterwards, and then I'm just, bro, I already have my dream job. I love science communication. This is all I want to do. You know what I mean? I want to sit here and goof about and talk about science with strangers. I don't want to be locked into a fucking lab all the time. It sucks. And there's people who are really good at it, and those people are amazing. We have one call left, but we still have lines open for theists and theists alone. So we're going to take this one call, and if this is our last call of the night, then it is. We're already right up on the line of 9 o'clock, which is when our contractual obligations expire. And if somebody calls in while we're taking this last call and they're like, I love Jesus and this is why, we'll talk to that one person. But other than that, was maybe the end of the show. Let's talk
I might be that person who calls in.
Yes. Let's talk to Remy, who wants to talk about selection pressure and what humans will evolve into. Remy, you're on the line with Forrest and Aaron. How you doing today?
Hi, Forrest. Good to talk to you again. I spoke with you the other day when you were there with Erica. It's still pronounced Remy, though.
Hey,
Dr.
all right.
Adair, Aaron, pleasure to meet you.
Good to hear from you, Ramy.
What can I do for you, Remy?
Well, I'm actually surprised that I got on. That last call seemed to last for an infinite amount of time, so I'm surprised we ever got here. And Forrest, I don't believe for a second that you were texting your wife. You were taking another bachelor's degree on that phone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was doing online classes.
Yeah. So
Brought to you by Brilliant.
My question is somewhat along. It's rather vague. It's just somewhat along the lines of we spoke the last time we spoke. We talked about ancient species and selection pressure and how it's always there, and just the fact that the selection pressures remain the same, and that's why the species don't change very much. Well, I'm just wondering about the future of humanity, since we've kind of removed ourselves from, more or less, from natural selection. We still have selection pressures, though, and I know that there are things like people are being born without wisdom teeth more and more and such like that. Just wondering if you have any other insights into where we might be going from here. Like, well, what are the pressures facing humanity today? The selection pressures facing humanity today, and what can we expect to see for changes in our genome? And where are we going? I'm sorry, Aaron, that I don't have something more up your alley, but you just talk math. I was told there wasn't going to be any math, but yeah, you just talk math for about half an hour. So just maybe Forrest could get a chance to kind of vamp on where transhumanism may take us in the future.
So as far as transhumanism, that's a whole other bag of cats. By the way, you are absolutely right. If you go to brilliant.org/Forrest Valkai, you can try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, plus get 20% off an annual subscription to Brilliant Premium. But I'm just saying you can do that. You don't have to do that, but you can do that, and they do pay me money. So transhumanism specifically is a totally different bag. What we're talking about just like selection pressures that are influencing humans at this moment. There's a lot of them, and it's literally selection pressure is such a wide thing. It is any access to nutrients, to oxygen, carbon dioxide, living space, sunlight, diseases, predators, lots of things. What I think is more interesting to look at is like the actual motion that we see, the direction that we see evolution taking us, the patterns, the trends of evolution that we see in human populations. And there's a few of them that are really cool. First of all, across the board, we see humans getting taller, and that's because of phenotypic plasticity. That's increased access to nutrients. And since people who need those nutrients aren't dying out as fast, we have a trend going in that direction. So we are able to grow taller because we have more sustainable nutrition, and we're able to evolve to be taller as well. Same thing with head size, because cesarean sections and other forms of modern medicine that no longer make it as big of a problem to fit a watermelon-sized baby out of a cervix the size of a quarter. We are getting bigger and bigger heads. That was an area that we were having a hard time with, but we're now a little bit better at that. So because those people aren't dying off as often, we're seeing a trend in that direction. Look at me. Holy shit, this thing is large. And then we've got individual isolated cases. For example, the Baju people. They are people that dive. They live on an island, I think, in like Southeast Asia. And they dive down and collect food off of the ocean floor. Their spleens are 50% bigger than other spleens anywhere else in the world, because your spleen does a few things. One of the things it does is that it stores extra oxygenated blood for like rapid use if you really need to. So it's like a built-in scuba tank a little bit, just saves a couple, 1 or 2 breaths worth of oxygen. And so their spleens are really, really big, which means they can hold their breath for way longer and dive underwater for way longer. Because this population has been isolated for thousands of years, they've been able to do that. And we also see other populations of people that live high up in the mountains that have way bigger lungs for the exact same reason. So we see lots of individual cases of like individual populations evolving in a particular way, and we see across the board with like most global society little trends in that direction as well. The thing that we cannot do with that is then predict and say, okay, so in this time, we will no longer be able to call ourselves humans, because that's just not how classification works. We can just kind of see where the trend is going and assume that it's probably going to go in the same way, maybe, but that's about it.
Very good. Well, thank you so much. I'm afraid I don't have anything more for you, but yeah, that was wonderful.
Right on, man. Thanks for waiting so long. I appreciate you being here.
And
hey,
Remy,
no
if you need, we can add some math to this. We could do the Hardy-Weinberg equation.
Yes.
There's always math.
I can run through that. There's always math. I can run through Hardy-Weinberg if anybody's interested. It's really cool. Anybody's interested. It is quite cool, and it's a way to tell if natural selection is indeed taking place. Because Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium is the theoretical situation in which natural selection stops. And we can use the Hardy-Weinberg equation to measure the allele frequencies. We can measure the genes of a population and then compare one population to the next, one generation to the next, and see if those gene frequencies change. And if they do, we know what's going on. It's evolution, yo. We can track that trend.
Very cool.
Anyway, have an awesome rest of your day, my dude. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks a lot, Forrest. Appreciate you. Dr. Adair, Aaron, thank you.
Bye. For those who are interested, I'm going to draw this really quick. Because this is actually, we're almost at 9, and this is one of my favorite things to show, right? Is when we talk about Hardy-Weinberg, what we're doing is we're saying A plus B. All of the dominant alleles plus all of the recessive alleles equals 100% of the alleles in the population. But we're talking about diploid. They have 2 sets of the chromosomes, right? So we have to take this whole thing and square it. This is where people get hung up because they want to just distribute that square. And they want to say that this is now A squared plus B squared equals 1. That doesn't work because think about what we're actually doing here. When we make a square of something, like let's say we want to make a square and we make side length 4, right? Well, what we're doing is we're literally making a square. 4 times 4 is 16. So 4 squared is literally a square of 4 is 16. I made that look stupid, right? This is what we're talking about. It's literally making a square. So if we were to square this whole thing, we have here is the shape of A squared, and here is the shape of B squared. This is not a unified biscuit, right? This doesn't make any sense. So what we're actually doing here when we make this happen is we're saying, here's this square, okay? Here is side length A, and here is the rest of that side, which is B. And here we do it again. This much is A, and this much is B. Now, we can subdivide this. This here is A squared, because that's A times A. And this part here is B squared, because that's B times B. But that's not the whole shape. This part is A times B. And this part is also A times B. And that's why when we put this all together, the actual way to write this out, A plus B squared, is A squared plus 2AB plus B squared equals 1. And what that means in genetics for Hardy-Weinberg, all of the homozygous dominant plus all of the heterozygous plus all of the homozygous recessive equals 100% of the population. That's how that works. 2 dominant alleles, 2 recessive alleles, 1 of each. That's how the squaring works. That is algebra and genetics and evolution all tied up into one. That's why FOIL works. Science, yo. It makes math. And math makes science too.
But now to complicate that. Because that geometric system only makes sense when you're dealing with real numbers, and there are algebra equations where you can solve and try taking square roots of negative numbers, which in that geometric sense would be, hey, it's like we're adding in empty spaces, this doesn't make sense, but algebra goes beyond what you can do with that geometric example. So this is a great visualization, I love it, and now I'm here to say yes and.
Yes, no, it's real, and so like what I want everybody to look at, I'm going to share this playlist called Imaginary Numbers Are Real. Everybody go watch this. It's really cool because it shows you plot this on a graph and you say, okay, so like the number I, which is the square root of -1, right?
Yes.
Where is that on this XY plane? It isn't unless you pull and stretch that graph into a third dimension. And then you get this funky shape that makes sense. And they go through the history of what imaginary numbers are and how it actually works. It is a fabulous fucking playlist. And you can watch it in an afternoon because all the videos are only like, I think the longest one is 25 minutes, but that's also later in the thing. Longest real one in the playlist is like 13 minutes. Most of these videos are like between 2 to 4 minutes. You can watch it really fast and have fun with it. It's a great thing to learn. Anyway, with that, Aaron, any final words of wisdom before we proceed to fuck off?
Yabba dabba do.
Both yabba dabba and do, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much to Jess for call screening, and then for Arden for taking over. Thank you so much to Arden for producing tonight. Thank you so much to Aaron for being an amazing friend and amazing host. Thank you to our mods in chat for keeping things civil and safe. Thank you to the people in chat, even the ones that suck. Thank you to the people who called in, even the ones that suck. Have an awesome rest of your day.